The betrayal of the warrior's oath. In the land of Omu, Akom Warazu, a once revered warrior, swears an oath to protect his people. However, in a moment of weakness, he betrays his oath, aligning with the enemy, the Zoloni, in exchange for power. His treachery leads to the fall of Omu, and he is cast out in shame. Haunted by his choices and the devastation he caused, Akom begins a journey of redemption. Guided by wisdom, humility, and the unwavering hope of his people, he trains a new generation of warriors and rallies them to reclaim their homeland. Facing betrayal, trust, and courage, Akom leads his warriors into a climactic battle to defeat the Zoloni and restore honor. The land of Ikena was a place of fierce warriors, bound by loyalty and the sacred oath of Warazu. Akom Warazu, a soldier of legendary strength, had sworn that oath under the blood moon, a vow that bound him to protect his people with his life. His name was sung in the songs of griots, etched in the hearts of villagers, and carved into the stone walls of their fortress. Akom was a man of towering build, with deep ebony skin that gleamed like polished stone. His battle scars were maps of victories and survival, and his eyes, sharp as an eagle's, bore the wisdom of war. He wore the traditional war garb of Ikena, a tunic of leather and beads, adorned with the red sash of a sworn protector. The sash, a sacred symbol, represented the blood of his people and his oath to keep them safe, but beneath his celebrated stature, Akom carried a shadow. As a child, he had been abandoned during a raid by the dreaded Zoloni kingdom. His village had burned, his family taken, and only he had survived. The chieftains of Ikena raised him, but the trauma lingered like a smoldering ember in his soul. Years of victories turned into complacency. The Zoloni kingdom, though once defeated, grew bolder. They attacked trade routes, raided border villages, and stole the crops that fed Ikena's children. One night, after a brutal battle where many warriors fell, Akom stood alone on the battlefield, his hands trembling from exhaustion. It was there he encountered Maleza, the emissary of the Zoloni king. Maleza was unlike any soldier Akom had ever faced. Clad in silver armor that glimmered in the moonlight, she wielded not only weapons but words that cut deeper than any blade. "You fight like a lion for a nation that chains you," she whispered, her voice a venomous lullaby. "Look at your people, Akom. They starve while the chieftains feast. You bleed while they watch from their thrones." Akom's lips tightened, his oath roaring in his mind. But Maleza pressed on. "Why protect a nation that lets you suffer? The Zoloni king does not forget his allies. Join us, and you will not just fight, you will reign." The promise of power, of freedom from his torment, slithered into Akom's heart. He wanted to resist, but the ember of his childhood pain flared, ignited by her words. That night, he made a choice that would shatter his nation. The Zoloni launched a coordinated attack on Ikena's capital, Omu. The warriors of Ikena, led by Akom, fought valiantly, believing in their general strategy. But they didn't know that Akom had led them into a trap. At the height of the battle, Akom signaled a retreat that left Ikena's gates wide open. As the Zoloni army stormed in, slaughtering civilians and burning sacred sites, Akom stood in the shadows, watching the destruction he had orchestrated. When the attack was over, Maleza handed him a golden seal, a token of his allegiance to the Zoloni king. "You've done well, Akom," she said, her smile cold, but as he gazed upon the ruins of Omu, the screams of women and children echoed in his ears. His people had trusted him, and he had betrayed them. His golden seal felt heavier than any sword he had ever carried. Days turned into weeks, and the ruins of Omu became Akom's prison. He was haunted by visions of the dead, faces of children who once ran to him for protection, warriors who had fallen under his command. His dreams were a cacophony of wails and whispers, accusing him of betrayal. One night, as he wandered the scorched fields, a figure emerged from the shadows. Clad in a dark cloak, the figure's face was hidden, but their voice carried an otherworldly power. Akom Warazu, the figure said, "Your betrayal has bound your soul to the suffering of your people. You can run from your nation, but you cannot run from yourself. Who are you?" Akom demanded, his voice hoarse. "I am a keeper of oaths," the figure replied. "You swore to protect Akena, but you betrayed that vow. Your people are enslaved, and their blood stains your hands. Will you wallow in guilt, or will you fight to redeem your honor?" The keeper of oaths offered Akom a chance to reclaim his honor, but it came with a price. He had to infiltrate the Zoloni kingdom, destroy their army, and free his people. It was a mission that would require every ounce of his strength, courage, and cunning. "I will do it," Akom said, his voice firm. "Not for glory, but for my people." The keeper handed him a talisman, a glowing artifact imbued with the strength of his ancestors. "This will guide you," they said. "But beware, your path is riddled with shadows. The darkness in your heart must not consume you." Akom's return to Akena was met with mistrust and anger. The survivors of Omu spat at his feet, calling him a traitor. But as he shared his plan to overthrow the Zoloni, their anger turned to cautious hope. With a small band of warriors, Akom launched a guerrilla campaign against the Zoloni. They attacked supply lines, freed enslaved villagers, and spread fear among the enemy ranks. Slowly the tide began to turn. The final battle took place on the plains of Arunu, where Akom faced Maleza one last time. Their duel was brutal, a clash of skill and raw emotion. "You could have ruled with us," Maleza sneered as their blades crossed. "I was born to protect, not to destroy," Akom replied, his voice steady. With a swift strike he disarmed her and reclaimed the golden seal she had once given him. As the Zoloni army retreated, the people of Akena cheered. But Akom knew his redemption was far from complete. Though he had freed his people, Akom chose to exile himself, believing he needed to earn their forgiveness through service. He traveled across Akena, rebuilding villages and teaching the next generation of warriors about the importance of loyalty and honor. The keeper of oaths appeared to him one last time, their voice softer now. "You have walked the path of redemption, Akom. Your soul is free, but your legacy will forever remind others of the cost of betrayal." Akom bowed his head, the weight of his journey lifting ever so slightly. He had learned the true meaning of the oath of Warazu, not just a promise to protect, but a vow to never lose sight of one's humanity. Akom's exile was not an escape, it was penance. He wandered through villages, reduced to ash by the Zoloni army, helping to rebuild what little could be salvaged. The once great warrior now walked alongside the villagers, his hands callous from lifting stones, sowing seeds, and repairing roofs. Children watched him with suspicion, their mothers whispering warnings about his betrayal. But over time the people began to see a different man. Akom was no longer the proud warrior who led his people into ruin. He was humbled, his eyes softened by regret, and his every action spoke of a man determined to right his wrongs. One evening, while resting in a quiet village, a young boy approached him. The child carried a broken wooden sword, a toy shattered during the Zoloni raids. "Will you teach me to fight?" the boy asked, his voice trembling. Akom knelt before the boy, his voice low but firm. "To fight is not enough," he said. "You must also learn to protect, to serve, and to love your people more than you love yourself. If you can do that, I will teach you." Word spread of Akom's pilgrimage. Warriors from neighboring villages sought him out, not to fight, but to learn from his wisdom. He began training a new generation of protectors, teaching them not only the art of war but also the value of peace. A small village near the river Oki became his base. There, under the shade of towering Iroko trees, Akom shared stories of his past, his victories, his betrayal, and his quest for redemption. The villagers began to trust him, seeing him not as a traitor but as a man transformed by his failures. One day, a messenger arrived from Omu, the capital of Akena. The chieftains, having heard of Akom's efforts, summoned him. They needed his guidance to rebuild their fractured nation and to prepare for the inevitable return of the Zoloni forces. Akom's return to Omu was met with mixed emotions. The streets were lined with villagers, some cheered, others glared, their faces etched with lingering anger. The ruins of the city stood as a grim reminder of his betrayal, but also as a symbol of the resilience of its people. The chieftains welcomed him cautiously. "You have walked a path we cannot imagine," said Chief Obika, the eldest among them. "But if you wish to reclaim your place among us, you must do more than speak. You must act." Akom nodded solemnly. "I will not ask for your forgiveness. I will earn it." Under Akom's leadership, the people of Omu began to rebuild their city. He organized warriors to defend the borders, engineers to restore the irrigation systems, and farmers to revive the fertile lands. The Zoloni kingdom, now weakened by internal conflict, posed no immediate threat. But Akom knew they would return. He worked tirelessly, training warriors not just in combat but in unity and strategy. Among those he trained were young men and women who had once lost faith in him. One of them, a fierce warrior named Adana, stood out. She had lost her entire family in the attack on Omu and had sworn vengeance against Akom. "I do not train for you," she told him bluntly. "I train for my people." Akom respected her resolve. "Then let your blade serve them well," he replied. Years passed, and Ikena rose from its ashes, stronger and more united than ever. Villages that had once been divided by petty rivalries came together under Akom's vision of a united land. The chieftains, seeing his dedication, offered to restore his title as a general. But Akom refused. "Titles mean nothing to me now," he said. "My duty is to serve, not to lead." Despite his humility, the people began to see him as a symbol of hope and resilience. Songs were sung of his transformation, and children were named after him, a testament to the redemption he had earned. But peace was short-lived. News came that the Zoloni kingdom was amassing an army, larger and more dangerous than ever. The new Zoloni king, a ruthless warlord named Kotoru, sought to avenge the humiliation of their previous defeats. Akom knew that this battle would be unlike any other. The Zoloni forces were stronger, their weapons deadlier, and their resolve unshakable. But Ikena was no longer the fractured nation it had once been. As the warriors of Ikena prepared for war, Akom addressed them. "We fight not for glory, but for the lives of those who cannot fight for themselves. Let our unity be our greatest weapon, and let our courage light the path to victory." The battle was fierce, stretching over days. Akom, despite his age, fought alongside his warriors, his presence inspiring them to push beyond their limits. In the final moments of the battle, Akom faced Kotoru in single combat. Their clash was brutal, a test of strength and will. Kotoru mocked him, calling him the traitor of Ikena. Akom's response was simple: a man is not defined by his fall, but by how he rises. With one final strike, Akom defeated Kotoru, ending the Zoloni threat once and for all. The victory at Arunu marked the beginning of a new era for Ikena. The people hailed Akom as a hero, but he remained humble, attributing the victory to the unity of his warriors. As peace returned, Akom withdrew from public life, choosing to live quietly in the village by the river Oki. He spent his days teaching children, sharing his stories, and ensuring that the lessons of his life would not be forgotten. In his final years, the keeper of oaths visited him once more. "You have done well, Akom Warazu," the keeper said. "Your name will be remembered not for your betrayal, but for your redemption." And so it was. Akom Warazu, the warrior who once betrayed his oath, became a legend not for his fall, but for his rise. The griots of Ikena sang of Akom Warazu, the warrior who betrayed and redeemed himself. His story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is a path to light, and somewhere, in the quiet hills of Ikena, a lone warrior continued to walk, carrying the lessons of his past and the hope of a brighter future.